Cheryl Chumley is one of my favorite writers over at the Washington Times. You're an opinion editor for the Washington Times, author, writer, speaker. You're the author of The Devil in D.C. See, it's the word devil in your title that somehow when you came up to the stage and the whole thing blew up.
It's my fault.
And maybe we got an Exorcist Part 4. So great to see you in person because we really do appreciate your work. And I wanted to start with you as we're here at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. You and I were talking about a poll that just was released that shows that about 50% of Americans have completely abandoned any semblance of faith, their God, prayer, religion. Talk a little bit about that poll and talk about why this convention, I think, is so important right now.
It's a very crucial poll, especially for the future of American liberties. And what it is, it's the General Social Survey by NORC, and it's supposed to be the gold standard of faith-based polls according to biblical scholars. And the real meat of it is that 50% of Americans are not certain that God even exists. And so if you have a country that's founded on God-given individual liberties and half the country doesn't believe in God, well, what does that say about the future of your liberties?
No kidding. I mean, and this is, there's an atmosphere here at the NRB. We call it the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. We're here for a couple of days, where people sort of have a resolve in their hearts. These are Christian broadcasters, but they understand there are cultural battles going on. There's a spiritual warfare, it feels like, in the country. Am I overstating that, or do you agree with that?
You know, that's a really good point, Mike, because for the last few years, it's felt different. I've been in the field of media for going on 30 years now, and I have seen the cultural battles, the political battles, but for the last few years, I would go back to Barack Obama days. It's really taken on a different tone. It really does feel like a battle of principalities out there. It's beyond politics, beyond Democrats versus Republicans. It's good versus evil.
I never used to say this. I mean, it's been, as you say, in the last few years. I think, for example, it feels like everything that's good about America, and let's start here, God, religion, faith. The left has adopted a narrative that mocks prayer.
Yes.
We've always I remember years ago going to Columbine right after the massacre there, and outside the high school, everybody was on their knees praying. Everybody was praying for the victims, for the survivors, for the families. Now the left mocks thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers has become a pejorative, and that to me, Cheryl, and again, I don't want to overstate this, but it seems like we're seeing evil sort of creep in to the fabric of how we live our lives. Evil is all around us.
Absolutely, and I would say that you could not overstate this, right? I would say that really many in the Christian community have failed to state it at all, and that's why we're seeing not even just a creep of evil, it's a rush, it's a tide, a wave that's sweeping across America right now. And we who know better need to awaken those who know least in order to save our country and to keep the Marxists, the communists, the socialists that have taken over the Democrat Party from winning.
And that's, by the way, front and center, isn't it? Yes. I mean, I remember Newsweek a few years ago said there was a cover. I put it on the wall, on my wall in my office. We're all socialists now. Remember that? It's like there's an embrace of socialism. There's an embrace of Marxism. AOC, one of the most popular Democrats in America, has seemingly embraced some of the principles of Karl Marx. Has embraced socialism quite openly. A lot of them, Bernie Sanders will say, "Well, now I'm a Democrat socialist." That's a distinction without a difference, isn't it?
Yeah. What's the difference between a socialist and a communist and a Marxist, a progressive, a Democrat? Really? They're all collectivists, and that's what we're battling here. And speaking of AOC, she is an offense to America. Every time I see her, hear her, read about her, I just get this physical reaction because someone like her does not belong in American politics. She's an open socialist. How can you be a socialist and take the oath of office to uphold the Constitution, to defend it? You can't. And so the fact that we allow her and others like her, open socialists, speaks volumes about where we stand in America right now.
We're visiting with Cheryl Chumley. Chumley. She's an opinion editor for the Washington Times here at the NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Orlando. We're in this massive World Marriott Center in sunny Orlando. Little thunderstorms this week as well. Cheryl, let's go back to the concept, the principles of good versus evil for just a moment. Last week, the House of Representatives passed a resolution honoring law enforcement who have been killed in the line of duty. It was real simple. It was just standing up for law enforcement who've been killed in the line of duty. Two of the squad members, Ayanna Presley, I think it was Cori Bush, two of them voted against it. So we've got Democrats now willing to say, we'll put our name on the record and not honor cops who've been killed in the line of duty. You know, there's such a line of demarcation between what the Republican Party typically stands for and what the Democrat Party stands for. Do you think the Democrats will pay a price in 2024 for this march to the far left?
That's a really good question, right? Because I would have thought, going back in time, Barack Obama never would have won a second term. And that just shows me how far off I am about America. I think the fact that we actually have these socialists sitting in Congress and they're able to gather steam and especially captivate the youthful vote in America is a danger. And so it's very difficult to predict, coming from a sane point of view, coming from a point of view where the Constitution is our guide. It's difficult to predict what the next election will be because it's so hard when you're good to understand evil, right?
Yeah, that's part of the problem. There's a failure to acknowledge the presence of evil by many on the left, maybe many on the right. When you talk about this poll of 50% not even knowing if God exists, Cheryl, let's acknowledge this. Let's face it. If you don't acknowledge God or good, you're not able to acknowledge evil either.
No, because you take your sense, your definition of good versus evil from your own mind, right? And look where that has led the world over time. When people think that they know based on their own mental acuity, based on their own IQ, what defines good versus evil, that's where we have atrocities occur.
You've been so patient to hang out with us, and we want to have you back on the show, maybe less trying circumstances, but thanks for your patience with us as we had some technical glitches. But what an honor it is to meet you in person because, listen, we're in for a ride. I don't know, I get this sense, I have listeners ask me all the time, you think it's going to get worse before it gets better? Cheryl, Chumley, do you think it's going to get worse before it gets better? The culture, the climate, what we're going through? Absolutely.
The evil is so open. Why would they recede by themselves?
Yeah, well put. Keep fighting the good fight, Cheryl. And again, thanks for your patience. We're gonna get you a gift card to a restaurant or something. You need hazard pay for hanging in there and watching all these frantic fixes here at the NRB. Great meeting you. Keep fighting the good fight.